401ks tend to be the biggest asset that most Americans have accumulated. We've got to make sure you have enough in there. So here are 3 steps to take when thinking about retirement in your 401k portfolio. First step, I'm gonna sound biased because I'm a financial planner as a CFP, but do a financial plan. Okay, when you do a financial plan, you get to determine how much you need to retire. You get to determine how much should be in savings versus investments. Okay, you get to look at your risk tolerance, what you're willing to do as far as portfolio allocation. You get to run stress tests. Okay, and we'll refer you to another video linked below that talks you through the different areas that are considered when creating a retirement plan. Okay, but these stress tests are really important because it gives you some peace of mind and gives you what's called your probability of success given different circumstances, which is called Monte Carlo simulation. So again, I'll refer you to that Monte Carlo simulation video. Okay, but again, a financial plan allows you to determine the timing of your retirement, what happens if different things happen in retirement to your portfolio, and gives you the peace of mind that you're making a good decision at the right time, knowing that nothing is fully under your control. So if that's step number 1, Jason, talk us to another step that might be helpful in determining your 401k timing and retirement.
The next step, and a very important, was to make sure you have the proper allocation of your 401k. And that's what the big fear is a lot of times when people are nearing retirement. Is the one is how much do I have enough? But the other one is, am I invested properly? Because what happens if we go through another financial crisis or another big stock market drop and my $1 million 401k turns into $500,000? And now I'm forced to work more years because, my retirement took a big hit. So, and that is a possibility, especially if your 401k is 100% stock. If you're in a very aggressive portfolio, that is a significant risk that you could take a really big drop right before retirement. So the goal here when you're trying to come up with the proper allocation is to balance 2 main things. Because there's one fear of, hey, what if my portfolio drops a lot right before retirement? But what a lot of people don't think about on the other side is, am I making enough returns over the long run for my plan to be viable? So we have to kind of weigh those 2 things, the fear of a big drop, but also the consideration that I need to make a certain return in order to be able to have a good retirement. If you go very conservative, you need to save a lot more money because you're not making enough per year to be able to live off of. So that's what we're trying to balance here. So one solution to that and trying to figure out the allocation of your 401k, because sometimes a lot of people just like, what funds do I pick? And I'm not sure which funds to pick. And am I going to do the right ones? Are these too risky? So we did a short on target date funds that I would refer you to watch to kind of get more details. But just really quick, a target date fund may be a good solution for you because a target date fund, essentially what it does is you see on this chart, you kind of have the teal, blue, different shades versus kind of this orange, brownish color shades. And you can see basically you start off early, when you're maybe 25 years old and you're saving and you're very aggressive. But as it's getting closer to 60, 65, kind of that retirement time frame, it's starting to go less stock and more bond. A simple solution is to choose the target date fund based off of when you're going to retire. And that will at least ensure that you have professional money management, that your portfolio is allocated and diversified well. However, when you do that, you also have to consider, okay, well, am I too conservative possibly, or am I too aggressive? So, I would still consult with a financial planner just to say, hey, is this the right target date fund? But if you're going to totally do it on your own, just choose the target date fund that, is targeting when you're going to retire, and it's going to be pretty solid.
And the way that looks in your choices in your 401k, if you're planning on retiring in 2035, it'll say target date 2035.
That's right.
Okay, so they don't know your age, but you tell them when you're planning to retire, and that fund will allocate. So as we get closer to 2035, the professional money manager is reallocating the funds accordingly, expecting that 2035 is when you are going to retire.
And so the next thing you got to think about is what's called the sequence of returns. So let's say, for example, you retire, you have $1 million, and then all of a sudden you go through a financial crisis. You don't have any more income coming in from your job. So now you're having to withdraw money to live off of from your investments. So you drop 50% because you were aggressive. You went from $1 million to $500,000, and you're taking your monthly income as it's going down. And that can really negatively affect a portfolio. So the sequence of returns are important. But as you can see in these next few charts, you also have to consider what is the long-term ramification if I go too conservative. Let's look at this couple, Karen and Mike. They're age 55. They want to retire in 5 years. So they want to retire at age 60 years old. Now, they're wise and they did a financial plan and they got everything in place. So that part they did really well, but let's kind of help them. Let's look at different allocations and the ramifications for that. In this first scenario, we're taking more of an aggressive portfolio. And you can see in this aggressive portfolio, it has a return of approximately 8.6% over time. And you can kind of see the range of possibilities over time. And this actually has a high probability of success. And of all the examples, this has the highest probability of success. So, Jason, are you telling me I should be fully aggressive in my portfolio? No, I'm not telling you that. But the mathematical side of that is if you're making a larger return over time, you should do better. Right. But the thing that you have to weigh here is, are you willing, because if you're taking more risk, are you willing for that portfolio to drop a lot? And most people aren't. Right. If you go through 2008, especially right before retirement, and you see your account drop significantly, you're not going to feel comfortable about retiring. And the worst thing you can do, which a lot of people do at that time, is when their account goes down, at the bottom is when they tend to sell or go more conservative. So you took a big drop, now it's down, inevitably the market's about to rebound and you go cash or you go more conservative and you miss out on the rebound. That really messes up your long-term returns. Even though being aggressive mathematically could have the longest returns and potentially the highest probability of success, the problem is you have to keep in mind the emotional, psychological side of, am I going to be able to stay invested? So in this next example, we're using a very conservative portfolio where they go very heavy bonds instead of the aggressive portfolio that goes very heavy stock. So in this scenario, it's averaged 4.5% annually. Remember, the other one was over 8% annualized. But remember also, both of those are annualized returns. That means for the aggressive one, you could have 1 year where you're down 25, another year where you're up 30, so it's all over the place. In this scenario with the portfolio that you have more bonds, maybe in a really bad year you lose 2, and a good year maybe you make 10. The range of possibilities is a lot lower, and for someone who's really scared about the market and they can't take volatility, this may seem like the right portfolio because they're not going to get as scared when the market takes a hit because they're not going to go down as much. What we're trying to explain here is you potentially may want to avoid going too conservative, because you can see here, there's only a 61% chance of success because the portfolio is not making enough returns over the long run. This is the only portfolio you can take because you can't take any volatility. This still may be the right one for you because any little swing in the market, you're going to go cash. And if you can't stick with the market, then, you have to kind of take less risk, unfortunately. So in this last example, we'll kind of look at the Goldilocks one, just right. So this one may be closer to, maybe a moderate, maybe 70% stock, 30% bonds, or a moderately aggressive, or somewhere closer to a balance. Anyway, it's returned about 6.6% per year over time. So kind of a good mix of stocks and bonds. And even though the probability of success is still a very high 92%, it's slightly lower than the fully aggressive one. However, for those who are concerned about the drops in the market, this one's going to be able to hold up better during the bad times, which psychologically, emotionally, you're going to be able to stick with it during the bad times. That's the key piece. And people don't think about that because people are rational and logical when things are going well. In my personal life, I've made some of the worst decisions when I was really scared or really angry. You're not supposed to sell low, but you still do it because you just can't take that pain anymore. And that fight or flight kicks in and you sell. So in this scenario, and what we're suggesting that you do is really spend time, not just, preparing for that big drop, but thinking about that, understanding what you're comfortable from a risk standpoint and how much a portfolio could go down, but also not forgetting, hey, this portfolio needs to have a decent return for me over the long term.
Financial plan is a tool that allows you to simulate those different scenarios, taking into account your quote unquote fear factor. What's your risk tolerance? That's a fancy term, versus what your capacity is for risk. Okay. And what your need is for risk based on your lifestyle. Okay. Because again, if you've got $5-10 million and you can earn 4% and live off of less of that, great. Then you don't need to have an aggressive portfolio and have that peace of mind. So we hope this helps. And if it does help, please hit the subscribe button below. And we look forward to seeing you soon.